The observation ship hung in the darkness beyond the small blue planet's orbit. Inside, High Talon Vraxis studied the data streams with growing disinterest. Another primitive world. Another weak species. His scales deep crimson marked with bronze along the edges reflected the dim light of the monitoring screens. Category 5 classification confirmed. His second officer announced. Vraxis nodded absently. Category 5 meant prey, the lowest ranking in the draconic sovereignty system. These creatures called themselves humans, and they were pathetic by every measure that mattered. Vraxis had seen the scans. The humans were small, barely reaching the chest height of a juvenile dragon. They had no scales, just soft pink or brown skin that would tear easily. No claws worth mentioning, no wings, no fire breath. They couldn't even survive in different atmospheres without clumsy mechanical suits. By all the old laws of the sovereignty, they were food stock at best. The draconic sovereignty had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. They had conquered 47 worlds. Some species had been strong enough to become subjects, serving the Dragon Empire in exchange for protection and advancement. Others became slaves, working the mines and factories. The weakest became meals for important ceremonies. This was the natural order of things, and it had never failed. Vraxis stretched his wings in the cramped observation ship. He missed flying in real atmosphere. Space was necessary for Empire, but it felt wrong. Dragons were meant for sky and wind and the joy of the hunt. Still, duty called. The High Council wanted this sector claimed, and these humans were in the way. Prepare the war clutch for descent, Vraxis ordered. We take the colony designated New Manitoba first. Show them what resistance costs. His fleet consisted of 20 warships and 300 dragon warriors. It was more force than necessary for a Category 5 species, but Vraxis believed in thorough work. The ships entered the atmosphere with flames trailing behind them, a sight that had terrified dozens of species before. The human colony appeared on the view screens. Buildings of metal and stone, primitive vehicles moving on roads, farms spreading across valleys. About 50,000 humans lived here, far from their homeworld. They would learn what it meant to stand before the sovereignty. Vraxis led the first wave himself. The rush of real air across his wings felt glorious after weeks in space. He roared, a sound that echoed across the mountains, announcing the arrival of their new masters. Behind him, the war clutch spread out, wings blotting out the sun. The humans scattered like frightened prey. Good. Fear made negotiations simpler. Vraxis landed in the central plaza of their main city, his claws scraping stone. He was magnificent. Nearly 12 meters from snout to tail, his wings spanning 20 meters when fully extended. The humans around him were insects by comparison. Attention, humans, Vraxis broadcast through his translator device. You now belong to the draconic sovereignty. Surrender and accept subject status or be classified as hostile prey. You have one of your hours to decide. The response came faster than expected. Not words, but action. Something screamed through the air and struck the dragon to Vraxis's left. The explosion threw Vraxis sideways. When he recovered, his warrior lay dead. A hole burned through her chest. More projectiles filled the air. Not the primitive chemical rockets the scans had shown, but something faster, something that burned. Dragons fell from the sky, roaring in pain and surprise. This wasn't supposed to happen. Category 5 species didn't fight back like this. Vraxis took to the air, dodging another missile by instinct more than planning. Below him, human soldiers poured from buildings. They wore armor and carried weapons that spat fire. They weren't running away. They were attacking. A young dragon, named Cressix, tried to use his flame breath on a group of soldiers. The humans scattered before he could focus, and something struck him from behind. Cressix crashed into a building and didn't move again. Evasive patterns, Raxus roared. Height advantage, stay above their range. But the humans had planned for that too. Larger weapons activated from hidden positions. The sky filled with fire and metal. A dragon warrior named Desha, one of Raxus's best flyers, simply exploded in midair when something invisible touched her. This was wrong. This was all wrong. Prey didn't hunt back. Prey didn't coordinate. Prey didn't have weapons that could kill dragons. Raxus made a decision that would haunt him. Retreat to the ships. All warriors, retreat. The withdrawal was chaos. Dragons crashed into each other trying to escape. The humans followed, their weapons reaching up into the sky like angry claws. By the time Raxus's warriors reached orbit, they had lost 43 dragons. 43 warriors dead, fighting a prey species. In the command ship, Raxus stared at the planet below. His scales felt cold despite the ship's warmth. His second officer approached carefully. "High Talon, the High Council demands a report." Raxus didn't look away from the view screen. "Tell them the humans fight back. Tell them this won't be a simple harvest." "But sir, they're Category 5. They have no natural weapons." "No, they have weapons," Raxus interrupted. "Just not natural ones. And they use them like predators, not prey." The second officer's confusion was visible. "That's impossible." The scans showed. The scans were incomplete. Raxus finally turned to face his officer. "We saw what we expected to see. Weak bodies, soft skin, no claws. But we didn't see what mattered. We didn't see their minds." Down on New Manitoba, human defenders were already rebuilding their damaged positions. Raxus could see them on the scanners, moving with purpose and coordination. They hadn't celebrated their victory. They were preparing for the next attack, like they knew it was coming. Like they had done this before. Raxus thought about the look in the human soldier's eyes during the brief moments of close combat. He had expected fear or desperation. Instead, he had seen something worse. Calculation, assessment, learning. The humans were studying them, adapting, planning their next move. "Send the message to the High Council," Raxus said quietly. "Request reinforcements. Many reinforcements, and tell them to reclassify the humans. They are not Category 5. What category, High Talon?" Raxus watched the planet turn below him. Watched the lights of human cities scattered across the night side like stars brought down to ground. Somewhere down there, humans were analyzing the dragon bodies, learning dragon weaknesses, preparing better weapons. "Unknown," Raxus said. "We need a new category entirely." The High Council of the Draconic Sovereignty met in their ancient chamber on Draken Prime. 12 elder dragons. Their scales dulled by age, but their eyes still sharp with intelligence. Listened to Raxus's report. They did not believe him. 43 warriors lost to a prey species? High Councilor Marthex's voice dripped with contempt. "Perhaps the problem lies not with the humans, but with the commander." Raxus kept his head level, though the insult stung. In Dragon Society, strength was everything. To lose warriors was to show weakness. To lose them to prey was unthinkable. "Honored Council, I urge caution. These humans are not like other species we have encountered. They're small and weak," another counselor interrupted. "Your own scans confirm this. No natural weapons. Short lifespans. Fragile bodies. You lost warriors because you were careless, Raxus. The Sovereignty will show you how such creatures should be handled." The Council authorized a full invasion. 6 human colony worlds would be attacked simultaneously. 30,000 dragon warriors. 500 warships. It was the largest military action the Sovereignty had taken in 2 centuries. They expected the humans to surrender within days. The attacks began at dawn across 6 worlds. Dragon fleets descended from the sky with fire and fury. The humans were ready. On the colony world of New Shanghai, dragons found the skies filled with flying machines that swarmed like angry insects. The machines carry explosives that detonated when they touched dragon scales. Hundreds of drones for every dragon. The warriors had to burn them from the sky, wasting their fire breath before even reaching human positions. On New Berlin, the dragons landed to find the forests themselves were weapons. Trees had been rigged with explosives. Clearings were actually camouflage pitfalls. The humans didn't fight in open combat. They hid, struck, and vanished. Dragon warriors burned entire forests trying to find enemies who were already gone. New Lagos presented a different horror. The humans used biological weapons, diseases engineered specifically for dragon physiology. Warriors began falling sick before the fighting even started. Their scales lost color. Their fire breath weakened. Some died gasping, their lungs failing. Across all 6 worlds, the pattern repeated. The dragons were stronger individually. Their ships had better technology. Their warriors could fly and breathe fire. But the humans fought in ways that negated every advantage. Raxus, commanding the attack on New Manitoba for a second time, saw the difference immediately. The humans had learned from the first battle. Their weapons were better positioned. Their tactics more refined. When dragons flew high, humans used longer-range missiles. When dragons flew low, humans used ambushes. When dragons gathered in groups, humans used area weapons. When dragons spread out, humans picked them off one by one. The war ground into its 3rd month. Dragon casualties climbed into the thousands. Human casualties were higher, but humans seemed to have endless replacements. For every human soldier killed, 2 more appeared. For every weapon destroyed, a better version emerged. Raxus began studying captured human data files whenever he could. He needed to understand what he was fighting. What he found disturbed him more than any battlefield could. Humans have been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. Their home world, Earth, had seen thousands of conflicts. World wars that killed millions. Genocides. Nuclear weapons capable of destroying their own planet. The humans had nearly exterminated themselves multiple times. They had turned warfare into a science. Every conflict taught them lessons. They documented their battles, studied their failures, improved their methods. Human military academies taught thousands of years of combat experience. Human children played games that simulated war. Human entertainment celebrated warriors and battles. The dragons fought for honor and territory. The humans fought to win, and they didn't care how. Raxus saw recordings of human tactics. They bombed supply lines instead of fighting warriors directly. They targeted medical ships, knowing injured dragons would drain resources. They used propaganda to demoralize dragon forces. They even played recordings of dragon death screams on loudspeakers to unsettle new warriors. One recording made Raxus's blood cold. A human general explaining strategy to her troops. The dragons think we're prey because we're smaller and weaker. They don't understand that on Earth, humans were never the biggest or strongest. We were never the fastest. But we're still here, and most of the big, strong, fast animals are either extinct or in our zoos. We survived because we learned to think, adapt, and never, ever give up. So let's teach these dragons the same lesson we taught every other predator on Earth. The war entered its 6th month. The draconic sovereignty controlled more territory, but was bleeding warriors faster than they could train replacements. Dragon society began to crack under the pressure. Young dragons questioned the wisdom of the elders. Some even refused to fight, claiming the war was unjust. Raxus received intelligence that the humans were doing something unprecedented. Every human nation, every colony, every faction was unifying. They were setting aside centuries of their own conflicts to face the dragon threat together. The sovereignty was fighting all of humanity at once. Then the humans revealed new weapons. Antimatter torpedoes that could crack dragon battle moons. Swarm drones that hunted individual dragons through atmospheres. Kinetic weapons dropped from orbit that hit with the force of nuclear bombs but left no radiation. But the weapon that terrified Vraxis most was something simpler. Humans began capturing dragon warriors instead of killing them. They treated prisoners well, healed their wounds, and then released them with data chips containing human history. Vraxis received one of these chips from a released warrior. Against protocol, he watched it. He saw humanity's greatest atrocities. The death camps, the atomic bombings, the chemical weapons, the systematic exterminations. Humans doing to each other what the dragons had done to other species. But he also saw humanity's mercy. The treaties after terrible wars. The efforts to save endangered species, even ones that had once hunted humans. The outpouring of aid after natural disasters. The humans were capable of both infinite cruelty and unexpected compassion. The war reached a turning point during a battle near Jupiter's moons. Vraxis's fleet engaged a human defense force. The fighting was brutal and close. Vraxis's ship was damaged, his navigation systems failing. As he tried to retreat, human fighters surrounded him. This was the end. Vraxis prepared for death with what dignity he could manage. Instead, the human ships escorted him away from the battle and forced him to land on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. A human officer was waiting. She was small, like all humans, but carried herself with authority. Her uniform identified her as Admiral Chun. She spoke through a translator. "High Talon Vraxis, you're a prisoner of war. You'll be treated according to our laws and returned when appropriate. In the meantime, I thought we should talk." Vraxis expected torture or interrogation. Instead, Admiral Chun brought him to comfortable quarters. Over the following weeks, she visited regularly. She brought books, films, and historical documents. She showed him Earth's history in detail. "I want you to understand what you're fighting," Chun said during one visit. "You think we're prey? You're wrong. We're predators, Vraxis. We just usually prey on each other. Every species on Earth that tried to hunt humans either went extinct or became our servants. Wolves became dogs. Wildcats became pets. Even the mighty mammoth is gone. We're not angry that you made this mistake. We just want you to understand what happens next if this war continues." Vraxis looked at the data she provided. The extinction of the Neanderthals outcompeted by humans. The near extinction of countless Earth animals. The domestication of every useful creature. The systematic conquest of an entire planet. "You want us to fear you," Vraxis said. "No," Chun replied. "We want you to understand us. Fear is for prey. Understanding is for equals. The question is, which do you want to be?" Vraxis returned to the Draconic Sovereignty 3 months after his capture. The prisoner exchange was formal and cold. Dragon ships met human ships at a neutral point in space. Warriors who could still fly crossed the void under their own power. Those too wounded rode in shuttles. When Vraxis landed on Draken Prime, he found his world changed. The war had brought something the Sovereignty had never experienced before: doubt. Young dragons were questioning the elders. Families mourned warriors who died fighting prey. The economy strained under military costs. Some colonies were refusing to send more warriors. Vraxis requested an emergency session with the High Council. They granted it, though several counselors glared at him with open hostility. He was the dragon who had lost battles to prey, who had been captured, who had accepted human mercy instead of dying honorably. In their eyes, he was tainted. "Honored Council," Vraxis began, I bring urgent news from my time with the humans. This war must end. Not because we are losing, but because we cannot win. Not at any price worth paying. High Counselor Marthex's laugh was harsh. The great Raxus returned from captivity to council surrender. How predictable. The humans have broken you. The humans have educated me, Raxus replied. He activated a display showing footage from Earth's history. Images of human wars filled the chamber. Look at what they have done to themselves. World wars that killed tens of millions. Nuclear weapons that can destroy entire planets. They have nearly exterminated their own species multiple times. They survive anyway. They adapt. They improve. They never stop fighting. Another counselor, the Sara, leaned forward. We have seen their weapons. We have adapted as well. Our new armor withstands their missiles. Our new tactics avoid their ambush. And they will adapt to our adaptations, Raxus said. Don't you understand? This is what they do. They have spent 10,000 years learning how to kill things stronger than themselves. We are just another predator that made the mistake of hunting them. The council chamber erupted in angry roars. The noise echoed off ancient stone walls. Raxus waited for silence, his wings held steady despite the hostility. The humans have offered terms, Raxus continued. Reparations for destroyed colonies. A demilitarized zone between our territories. Technology exchange. Recognition of their sovereignty. These are generous terms given their current military position. Generous? Marthex roared. We should accept terms from prey? The sovereignty does not negotiate with food. Then the sovereignty will die, Raxus said quietly. The chamber fell silent. What Raxus had said was treason. Predicting the sovereignty's defeat was forbidden. But Raxus had passed beyond caring about protocols. The humans are preparing a final offensive, Raxus continued. Admiral Chun showed me their plans. She wanted me to understand what happens if we refuse their terms. They have built a fleet 3 times larger than anything we have faced. They have weapons we have never seen. They plan to strike at Dragon Prime itself. Let them come, Marthex snarled. We will show them what happens when prey attacks a dragon's home. You still don't understand, Raxus said. He showed more images. Human cities burning. Human children starving. Human worlds turned to ash by dragon fire. Look at what we have done to them. Millions dead. Colonies destroyed. And they are still coming. Still building. Still fighting. What do you think they will do if we threaten their homeworld? If we push them to desperation? He changed the display to show Earth's nuclear arsenals during their Cold War period. They built enough weapons to destroy their own planet 20 times over. They pointed these weapons at themselves, at their own species. For decades, they lived on the edge of self-extermination. And they survived anyway. What do you think they have built to use against us? The Zara spoke, her voice less certain than before. What are you proposing, Raxus? I am proposing we accept their terms before they demonstrate what happens when humans truly commit to war. I am proposing we acknowledge that strength comes in many forms, and the humans have mastered one we never considered. I am proposing we choose survival over pride. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. The High Council was split. Half wanted to accept the human terms. Half wanted to continue the war, believing dragon superiority would eventually triumph. Some even wanted to escalate, to use planet-breaking weapons that the sovereignty had kept in reserve. Raxus argued until his voice was raw. He showed recordings from human prisoners. He shared intelligence about human weapons development. He explained human psychology, their refusal to accept defeat, their ability to turn any setback into motivation. Finally, on the 3rd day, High Counselor Marthex called for a vote. The decision would shape the sovereignty's future. accept human terms and admit that prey could defeat predators, or continue the war and prove that dragon strength was supreme. The vote was 6-6. Ty Dot as the eldest. Marthex had the deciding vote. He sat in silence for a long moment, his ancient scales gleaming in the chamber's light. Every dragon present knew the weight of this decision. "I have led the sovereignty for 200 years, Marthex said finally. "I have seen us conquer dozens of worlds. I have never doubted our superiority. But I am not a fool. I can see the reports. I can count the dead. And I can recognize when pride becomes stupidity." He looked directly at Vraxis. "I still believe you are weak, Vraxis. I still believe a true dragon warrior would have died rather than accept capture. But you may also be wise. Or at least less foolish than continuing a war we may not win." Marthex's vote was cast. The sovereignty would accept human terms, but the decision came too late. Even as the council voted, the human final offensive was launching. Long-range sensors detected the fleet assembling beyond Neptune's orbit. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons. The humans were coming. Vraxis made a choice that would define the rest of his life. He contacted Admiral Chun through an encrypted channel that his captors had given him. A way to reach her if he saw a reason. He provided her with detailed information about Draken Prime's defenses. Every weapon placement, every shield generator, every weak point dot. It was treason. Absolute treason. If discovered, Vraxis would be executed in the most painful way dragon law allowed. But he had seen what humans did when truly threatened. If they reached Draken Prime believing dragons would never surrender, they would turn the homeworld to ash. They would do to dragons what dragons had done to others for 3,000 years. Admiral Chung received the intelligence. She responded with a single message. "Thank you. We'll make it quick." The human fleet jumped into the Kuiper Belt, far outside Draken Prime's solar system. Not attacking, just demonstrating presence. Showing strength. The Sovereignty's defense fleet scrambled to meet them. Vraxis watched from the High Council chamber as the two fleets faced each other. Thousands of lives hung in the balance. One wrong move, one nervous warrior, one overeager human captain, and the bloodiest battle in galactic history would begin. Admiral Chan broadcast on all frequencies. "Draconic sovereignty. We know your High Council has voted to accept our terms. We honor that decision. We propose an immediate ceasefire. Stand down your fleets, and we will stand down ours. This war ends now, if you allow it." Vraxis saw something in that moment that changed his understanding of humans forever. They had won. Their fleet was superior. Their weapons more advanced. They could have attacked and likely destroyed the Sovereignty's defense force. But they chose mercy instead. Marthex gave the order to stand down. The war ended not with a final battle, but with two fleets simply stopping. Holding position, waiting, both sides exhausted. Both sides ready for peace. In the council chamber, Vraxis allowed himself to breathe properly for the first time in months. They had survived. The sovereignty would continue. And perhaps, if they were very fortunate, they would learn from this. "Vraxis," Marthex said, "you will lead the negotiation team. You understand the humans better than any of us. See if you can turn our defeat into something salvageable." Defeat. Marthex had said it. Acknowledged it. The sovereignty had been defeated by prey. By small, soft, weak creatures who refused to act like prey should. Vraxis bowed his acceptance. As he left the chamber, he wondered what Admiral Chun would say when they met again. Would she gloat? Threaten? Demand impossible terms? He was about to learn that humans were capable of surprising, even those who thought they understood them. The negotiation took place on a neutral station that humans had built specifically for this purpose. It orbited between Earth and Draken Prime, exactly halfway. The symbolism was obvious. Neither side above the other. Vraxis arrived with a delegation of 12 dragons, all high-ranking officials. They flew through the docking bay with as much dignity as they could manage. Inside, humans waited. Admiral Chun stood at the front, flanked by diplomats and military officers. The conference room was designed to accommodate both species. High ceilings for dragon wings, reinforced floors for dragon weight, but also comfortable chairs for humans. Translation equipment, displays that could show data in both languages. High Talon Vraxis, Admiral Chun said, extending her hand in a human gesture of greeting. Welcome. I'm glad we're meeting under better circumstances. Vraxis studied the hand. Such a small thing. Soft skin over fragile bones. No claws. Yet this hand had commanded fleets that killed thousands of dragons. He reached out carefully and touched it with one claw tip. The human custom of shaking hands didn't work well with dragon anatomy, but the gesture mattered. Admiral Chun, I come prepared to discuss terms. Then let's begin. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. The humans wanted reparations for destroyed colonies. The sovereignty wanted prisoners returned. Humans wanted access to dragon exotic matter technology. The sovereignty wanted guarantees against future human expansion. Both sides wanted borders clearly defined. Vraxis found himself surprised by human behavior. They were tough negotiators, but not cruel. When the sovereignty struggled to meet certain demands, humans offered alternatives. When dragons requested cultural considerations, humans listened. On the 8th day, a young human diplomat named Sarah raised a point that had been bothering her. Hi, Talon Vraxis, can I ask you something directly? Of course. Why did your people think we were prey? I've read your initial reports. Your scans were thorough. You knew our physical limitations. But you must have known we had technology, cities, space travel. What made you think we would just surrender? Vraxis considered the question carefully. In our history, every species weaker than us has eventually submitted. Strength determines hierarchy. You were weaker in body, so we assumed you were weaker in spirit. We were wrong. But you learned, Sarah said. You changed your mind. Why? Because I saw human history. I saw what you did to each other. I realized that a species that fights itself so viciously would never submit to outsiders. And I saw that you survived anyway. That told me everything. Admiral Chun joined the conversation. We don't hold grudges, Vraxis. We fought terrible wars with each other. Nations that once tried to exterminate each other are now allies. Germany and France. Japan and America. We believe in moving forward. The question is, can the sovereignty do the same? That question haunted Vraxis. Dragon culture was built on hierarchy and honor. To lose was shameful. To be defeated by prey was unthinkable. How could the sovereignty move forward when its entire worldview had been shattered? On the 15th day of negotiations, something unexpected happened. A group of young dragons arrived at the station, led by a warrior named Kesix. They requested an audience with Vraxis. Hi, Talon, Kesix said. We represent the new scale movement. Young dragons who believe the old ways have failed. We want to learn from the humans, not fight them. The High Council will not approve, Vraxis warned. The High Council is wrong, Kesix replied. We lost this war because we were arrogant, because we assumed strength of body meant strength of everything. The humans proved us wrong. Now we want to understand them. Vraxis arranged a meeting between the young dragons and human diplomats. What happened next was remarkable. The humans didn't mock or belittle the dragons. Instead, they answered questions honestly. They explained human philosophy, history, and culture. They showed respect for dragon traditions, While explaining why human approaches work differently, a young human named James asked Kessex about dragon flight. "What's it like? To fly with your own wings?" Kessex demonstrated, spreading his wings in a large conference room. "It's freedom. It's power. It's who we are." "That's beautiful," James said. "On Earth, humans dreamed of flight for thousands of years. We built machines to do what you do naturally. We never stopped trying until we succeeded. I think that's who we are. We dream of impossible things and make them real." The two young people, dragon and human, talked for hours. By the end, they were trading stories and laughing. Other young dragons and humans joined them. Raxus watched this and felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. The treaty was finalized on the 21st day. The Accords of Mutual Understanding, as humans named it. The sovereignty would pay reparations over 20 years. Both species would exchange ambassadors. A demilitarized zone would separate their territories. Technology sharing would be negotiated case by case. Most importantly, both sides recognized the other as sovereign equals. But beyond the formal terms, something else was happening. Cultural exchange programs began. Human students wanted to learn about dragon history. Dragon students wanted to understand human technology. Artists from both species started collaborating. The most surprising thing was human attitudes toward dragons. Raxus had expected hatred or fear. Instead, he found fascination. Human children read stories where dragons were wise and noble. Human artists painted dragons as majestic creatures. Humans seemed to admire what dragons were, even after fighting a war against them. Admiral Chun explained it one evening, sharing a human beverage called whiskey with Raxus. Humans have always been fascinated by dragons. In our mythology, dragons are powerful, intelligent, magical. We told stories about them for thousands of years before we met you. Finding out dragons were real was like a dream coming true. Yes, we fought a war, but that doesn't erase the wonder. "Your species is strange," Raxus said, sipping the burning liquid carefully. "We're survivors," Chun replied. "And we remember that today's enemy can be tomorrow's friend. We've proven that with each other. Now we'll prove it with you." 5 years after the war ended, Raxus stood in a classroom at the Joint Human-Dragon Academy. The institution was humanity's idea, a place where both species could learn together. Raxus had retired from military service to teach here. His students were a mix of young dragons and young humans, all eager to understand the war and prevent another. Professor Raxus, a young dragon student, asked, "What did you learn from the war?" Raxus looked around the classroom. Dragons and humans sitting together, sharing notes, arguing good-naturedly about history and tactics. 5 years ago, this would have been impossible. "I learned that we were all wrong," Raxus said. "Dragons were wrong to think humans were prey. Humans were wrong to think dragons were mindless beasts. We were all just people, making assumptions about each other based on surface observations. The war taught us to look deeper." A human student named Maria raised her hand. "But Professor, what are humans? If we're not prey, what are we?" Raxus had thought about this question for 5 years. He had discussed it with Admiral Chun, now a good friend. He had debated it with other dragons. He had watched humans and dragons learning to coexist. "Humans are survivors," he said finally. "You survive disasters. You survive wars. You survive your own worst impulses. You take every terrible thing that happens and somehow find a way to keep going, to keep improving. That's what makes you dangerous. But it's also what makes you valuable as friends." "And what about dragons?" another student asked. "Dragons are learners," Raxus said. "We thought we knew everything. The war taught us we didn't. Now we're learning to see beyond strength and weakness, learning that there are many ways to be powerful, learning that the most dangerous creature in the universe isn't the one with the biggest claws, but the one willing to adapt. He looked at his mixed class of students. They were the future, dragons who had never known human enemies, humans who had never feared dragon predators. They were growing up together, learning together, building something new. The real lesson, Raxus continued, is this. We are not predators and prey. We are not conquerors and conquered. We are people who made mistakes, learned from them, and chose to build something better. That choice is what defines us now. After class, Raxus walked through the academy grounds with Admiral Chun, who now served as the academy's human director. They watched students playing a game that combined dragon flight with human strategy. Laughter echoed across the courtyard. Do you ever regret it? Chun asked. What you did during the war. The information you gave us. Every day, Raxus admitted. I betrayed my people. Some dragons still call me traitor. But I also saved my people. If that fleet had fought, if the war had continued, Draken Prime might be ashes now. You made the hard choice, Chun said. That's what leaders do. Humans would have shown mercy even in victory, wouldn't you? Chen was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I don't know. We would have tried. But in the heat of battle, when we thought our homeworld was threatened, when we remembered our destroyed colonies, I can't promise mercy would have won. You were right to end it when you did. They walked in comfortable silence. 5 years ago, they had been enemies. Now they were colleagues, friends, partners in building a future neither had imagined possible. A young dragon flew overhead, carrying a human student on her back. The human was laughing with joy. The dragon was teaching him what flight felt like. This was something that would have been inconceivable during the war. Admiral, Raxus said, what do you think happens next? For our species? Chun smiled. I think we surprise ourselves. We build things together that neither of us could build alone. We explore the galaxy as partners instead of enemies. We teach other species that strength comes in many forms. And maybe, if we're very fortunate, we become an example of what's possible when people choose understanding over fear. That's a very human hope, Raxus observed. Then consider it a gift, Chun replied. Hope is something humans have a lot of. We've needed it to survive. Now we share it. Raxus spread his wings, feeling the sun on his scales. He was old now, by dragon standards. His scales had lost some of their luster. His fire breath wasn't as strong as it once was. But he had lived to see something remarkable. He had watched 2 species go from bitter enemies to genuine partners. Admiral, I have another question. Why do humans tell so many stories about dragons? Because dragons represent what humans wish they were, Chun said. Powerful, ancient, wise. When we imagine dragons, we imagine the best of what strength could be. Meeting real dragons was terrifying, yes, but also wonderful. You made our stories real. And dragons now tell stories about humans, Raxus said. Stories of small creatures who refused to give up, who turned weakness into strength, who survived everything and helped others survive too. You made us question what strength really means. They stood together, dragon and human, watching their students learn and play and build friendships that would last lifetimes. The war was over. The peace was holding. The future was unwritten. And for both species, that unwritten future felt full of possibility.